There's a reason for putting that in there. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire within a bush. As Moses looked, he saw the bush was on fire but was not consumed. So Moses thought, I must go over and look at this remarkable sight. Why isn't the bush burning up? When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called out to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. He answered, Here I am. What's going through Moses' mind? What's going through your mind, if that's you? What's that? Wait, hold on. This bush talking to me? Okay. It's not something he's seen before. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm sure his mom taught him some things about God too. But up to this point, does he know it's Yahweh? We do, but does he? I think he's putting it together pretty quick. This is not a normal conversation, not a normal run-in, not a normal day. In something supernatural, someone supernatural is right in front of me. And Moses' answer is, Here I am. He's not leaving any doubt as to who he's talking to. He calls Moses out. He's not calling out some name, and Moses goes, What's he saying? Walter, Walter. No, he's not saying Walter. He's saying my name, Moses. He's talking to me, leaving no doubt I'm the guy you're talking to. I'm the one you're calling over. Yeah, absolutely. Here I am, he answered. Y'all, somebody read verse 5 and 6, please. First thing that Moses learns about God is what? Okay, he's holy, almighty. I'm going to throw out a possibility that I've never really paid attention to. He's approachable. He's a God who is calling him over and say, Hey, come here. He's not this God from a distant land that doesn't have contact with you. He is saying, Moses, come here. Yes, ma'am. I am the God of your father. Moses had a biological daddy who was Hebrew. And then he goes into the lineage of the promise. I am the God of your father. I'm the God of Abraham, the one who I made the promise to. I am the God of Isaac, and I am the God of Jacob. In other words, there's no confusing who he is. I'm your God. I've been the God of all of your ancestors. I'm the God you thought was gone. I might even be the God you thought was not real, that didn't hear you, that didn't know who you were, didn't know your name, didn't know the hairs on your head, didn't know when you get up and when you go down. But I'm the God of your daddy. I'm the God of Abraham. I'm the God of Isaac. I'm the God of Jacob. I am the God of promise. And when that happens, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Isn't that kind of what Peter did in the boat? Away from me, Lord, after the miraculous catch of fish. For I am a sinful man. Isn't that kind of what Isaiah felt when he saw God holy and lifted up in the throne room? And what does he do there? He says, Woe is me, I am ruined. I'm a man of unclean lips among unclean people. And in both situations, God's still saying, Come. Then he says this, remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you were standing is holy ground. That's a sign of humility. Taking off your sandals for a Hebrew, it's not like us going to the beach. It's a big deal. Then he says, verse 7. Now I'm going to read it in this version, and I would like to hear one of you all read it from a different version. Verse 7. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt, and I've heard the crying out because of their oppressors. I know about their sufferings, and I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and to bring them from that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the territory of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. So because of it, the Israel cry for help has come to me. I have also seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. Therefore go, I am sending you to Pharaoh so that you may lead my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Now, if somebody else would read 7 through 10. Yeah, that's good. It happens to me all the time. It said, therefore, go, I'm sending you to Pharaoh so that you may lead these people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So, the first thing God does is calls him over. Then he says his name. That's when he calls him over by his name. Take off your sandals because I'm here. This is holy, right? Up to that point, Israelites couldn't make themselves holy, right? But God's making the place holy because he's there. He's bowing down. God's talking to him was not contingent upon Moses having all the answers. Wasn't contingent upon Moses knowing even who he was. It was contingent upon God called him, he came. God's attention. Tells him his name, tells him what kind of God, what the history of his relationship with Israel, just so that Moses knows which God he's talking to. And then what's the first thing he tells him after that? In verse 7. I have observed the misery of my people. I have heard them crying, and I know about their suffering. What does that tell you about God? He does know everything. He's compassionate. He hears us. He hears us. He sees us. He knows. And I can't help but think for everybody, but specifically for our family here, that's important. He is going to do something about it. Absolutely. What I'm trying to focus on this morning is we know he's going to bring in judgment. He's going to pound the Israelites, the Egyptians. We know that. That's coming. The 10 plagues. Moses doesn't know that because he hadn't read the scriptures yet. Like we have. We got them now. He didn't at that point. It hadn't happened. But God's telling him, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt. Why was Moses even in the wilderness to begin with? He had seen the misery too. He tried to do something about it, and he failed miserably. But God is telling him, look, I have seen what my people are struggling with. I know about it. I've heard them crying specifically because of their oppressors. The man Moses killed was one of those. I know about their suffering. At that point, if you're Moses, you might be thinking, well, why ain't you doing something about it? Or why haven't you done something about it? But then God follows up before he can even ask it. I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them from that land into the good and spacious land, the land of promise. So I want to stop there for a minute, and I know it's early, and I'll ask some guiding questions, okay? If you were sitting with someone who was suffering, whatever that might be, physical, emotional, someone who was weary, someone who had been crying out, a friend, a family member, how might this passage bring hope? You know that God is there. Okay. God hears them and sees them. What else? There's going to be an action taken. Okay, I want to stop there for a minute. So God does see, God does hear, God is compassionate, God is going to do something, right? So chances are everybody in this room knows someone who is crying out, who feels oppressed, who feels like God doesn't hear, and is wondering how long. Maybe losing hope. But instead of Moses, God's talking to you. He says, I want you to be my representative to them, not just about their salvation. That's a big one. But that God hears them, sees them, is concerned and compassionate towards them. How are you going to do that? Real world. Because that is the call. Yes, man, bring the Lord in their lives, speak to them, but let's go with this for a second. They're already believers, your friend. Okay? Because in this case, Israel's a friend. And I'm not trying to spiritualize this passage, okay? We know it's deliverance from. But Jesus says the same thing in Luke chapter 4. He picks up the scroll of Isaiah and starts telling what's going to happen. The oppressed are going to be set free. The blind are going to see. The naked are going to be clothed. The hungry are going to be fed. He's basically saying the same thing. All right? Different context, but same thing. But this time to his disciples and everybody else that's listening. And then he says, I'm going to send you. And so there's this reality that, okay, now, like Moses, we can all relate to Moses. Moses is getting ready to go talk to Pharaoh. I don't know about that. We get nervous about talking to our friends at the hospital, even those we love and have relationships with, because we don't know what to say sometimes. It's not that we don't care, that we don't believe in God. It's we don't know what to say, and we get paralyzed by it sometimes. So be present. Because our presence is a reminder to them that God is present. But then this is where it gets important. We can read about what God did. It's important. I sat down and Ray was with me. We went through Psalm 22, start to finish, with Forrest Vanderbilt just a few weeks before he passed. in talking about the reality that he wasn't going to make it any longer. He was at the end. And he knew it, she knew it, we knew it. We could pray for more, and God can give that. But what was within our power, he was on hospice, had just got brought back. Actually, was getting ready to go to the hospice place. He knew. So a lot of times now we want to sugarcoat things with people. And I think maybe with a child, okay, because that's where they're at. But with our brothers and sisters who have walked this life for some time, I'm not saying go in there and be a bulldozer, okay? That's not what we're saying. But I think it's important not to go in and say, well, it's going to be okay. We talked about that on Wednesday nights a few weeks ago, remember? And everybody was kind of chiming in. Don't just tell me what you think, what I should do. Listen to me. Just sit with me and be present. You don't have to say a word. Just be in the room. Talk about the things we've done together, what God has done in our mutual lives, the things we've seen God do together. Because we have a relationship with people for more than a few years, there ought to be some of those experiences that we can talk about. We can talk about how God has been with us and walked us through times when we didn't know there was going to be a way. And how there were times that we, just like the Israelites, felt like God had abandoned us and brought us out here to die, to starve. And then we can remind each other how God proved faithful. He knows exactly what we're thinking. That's right, Miss Millie. And see, more and more I am convicted of all of us need to hear this message deep within our souls. And the younger generations need to hear it from us. Not just that we know Scripture. How did God start it with? God started with relationship. He didn't say, I'm God and you're my servant. He started with, I am the God of your father. Your father knew me, and I knew him. I knew your grandma and your grandpa. I knew Abraham, the father Abraham of the faith, who didn't know where he was going to go but went because I told him to, and whose faith was credited to him as righteousness, not because he was a Jew already or he'd been circumcised, but because he was faithful and went when I said go. Isaac, because he was the son of promise. When a barren womb was made alive. And Jacob, not because he was the oldest, but because he was the chosen. God is letting Moses know up front. He's digging in and he's saying, look, my people hurt. They're crying. Their labor is oppression. What started off as a good thing turned into something worse. Because they were in Egypt because God took them there. Right? But the first one to go was taken there not because he wanted to go, but because he was forced to go as a slave. But we read in Genesis that God was with him in all that he did. And then when he had the chance to slam his brothers for what they had done, Joseph, I'll get it right in a minute, Joseph relied on relationship. You're my brothers. And my God, our God, had something planned. And he worked through you, something bigger. Almost as if to say, you really didn't have a choice in this. God was going to make this happen whether you did it or not. Our Father took care of me. Now I'm in charge of all of Egypt. And then over time, just like in our society today, people grow up who don't know God, leaders who aren't faithful men. It's interesting to me, we just celebrated 250 years as a country. How many years was Israel in Egypt before they became slaves? They were there for 400 plus years total. But they started off for a few hundred, okay. And then a leader grew up who didn't know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He does what all leaders do. He silences God's people for his own gain. And the people had the ability to get free at any moment. They outnumbered the Egyptians in some ways. But they were afraid and they didn't know who they were. You see, when we get into struggle, when we get into heartache and pain, sometimes we lose our identity. Well, not our names, not where we live, but that we are the children of God, the children of promise. Sometimes we forget that in this, when we're crying out to God, we forget that this world really isn't our home. We sang the songs for generations. But I don't know that I sang it the way I understand it now. This world's not my home. But so much of what our people elevate to secure ourselves in are things that we can hold on to here instead of what's beyond. One of the things about Abraham that God says, he was looking for a home that wasn't his own. The end of Hebrews chapter 11, all of these were looking for something, a home they hadn't reached yet. I mean, they were all looking for God in heaven. But they lived as his people here and now. And as long as we're in the here and now, there's going to be death. There's going to be oppression. There's going to be brokenness. There's going to be heartache. There's going to be all the different emotions that we can possibly comprehend, and then some, and experiences. And God is looking at me, and he's looking at you, and he's saying, come over here. Even when we do communion later, come over here. I got a story to tell you. This isn't how it ends. And he's looking at Kenny, and he's looking at Anita, and he's looking at each one of us, and he's saying, there are people that need to hear that God sees, is concerned, he knows, and he's doing something. And sometimes that's us. Sometimes the one being sent is the one that knows, I need some help. Moses was getting sent to Pharaoh, and the first thing he said is, I can't do that. And God says, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to do it. You're just going to be my representative. So just a thought for a minute. And it'll be quiet on the camera too for a minute. It's hard to pick up anyway. Don't answer it out loud. I'm going to go back and get a cup of coffee to give you time. Who in your life needs you to come in? Like Moses did. God sent Moses. Hey, Eric. God sent Moses. Right? Who might God be sending you to? Just keep that in mind for a second while I get some coffee. Hey, man. Good to see you. Good, man. Doing good. Filling in for my dad this morning before our regular sermon. My dad normally teaches. Mm. Yes, sir. Right. He is. He's on a real authentic search. Absolutely. Anybody else before we wrap this up? Your family as well. Okay. So I'm going to read this again. Say a couple of words, and then we'll close out, kind of talk, visit, eat some donuts, catch up, and then we'll come back in here. So, meanwhile, Moses was shepherding the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire within a bush. And Moses looked and saw that the bush was on fire but not consumed. So Moses thought, I must go over and look at this remarkable sight. Why isn't the bush burning up? When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called out to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, he answered. Do not come any closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place where you were standing is holy ground. Then he continued, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt and have heard them crying out because of their oppressors. I know about their sufferings, and I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and to bring them from that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So because the Israelites' cry for help has come to me, and I have also seen the way of the Egyptians are oppressing them, therefore, go, I am sending you to Pharaoh so that you may lead my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses asked God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He answered, I will certainly be with you, and this will be a sign to you that I am the one who sent you. When you bring the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this mountain. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, give us some free time before we all come back in here. God is talking to his people. In context, Israel in Egyptian bondage. God is letting Moses know that he hears their cries, he's seen their misery, he's concerned about them, and he's going to lead them out. God is a God who sees, God is a God who knows, God understands, he's compassionate, and he's caring. But there's also a time when the timing is right. And God is stepping into this. He's talking to Moses. He's going to send Moses. Moses is nervous. Moses is afraid. Who am I? I got to go back there? Come on now, God. And God says, don't worry about it. I'm going with you. I'm going to take care of it. In the world that we live in our families, as some of you said earlier, in our workplaces, in our communities, we don't have to look very far to see people who are hurting, to see people who have lost hope, to see people who are scared, people who are worried and angry, who are questioning, does God even care? Does God even see? And those are fair questions, and God lets them come, right? They're crying out. So crying out, God hears it. That's also kind of like what? Prayer? God's people are crying out to God, and God sends someone to answer the prayer as his representative. So maybe, just maybe, that prompting we feel in our heart, in our soul sometimes as believers of God, to go and talk to someone, to sit with someone, just to be present with someone. Maybe, just maybe, that's the prompting of God answering their prayer through you and me as his representative, to remind them that God loves them and cares for them and is with them. So those names you thought about in your head earlier, let today be the day that you answer that in obedience and step into it. You don't have to tell me or anybody else you're doing it. In fact, it's better if you don't. But go be present with someone who needs, because one day it just might be you needing someone reminding you that God's present and God hears you, God sees you, God's concerned, and God has and will deliver you. Thank y'all for your time. See you in a little bit.